In the hills outside the old Chinese capital, there stands a stone monument nearly 23 feet tall. Every emperor's tomb was marked with an inscription praising their reign. This one is blank. Not a single word was ever carved into it. It marks the grave of the only woman in 3,000 years of Chinese history to rule as emperor in her own name. She was born the daughter of a merchant, entered the palace as a teenage concubine, and clawed her way through murder, exile, and a Buddhist prophecy to seize a throne no woman was ever meant to touch. Her enemies called her a monster who killed her own children. Her subjects lived through decades of peace and prosperity. And when she died, she left the judgment of her reign to history, ordering that her monument be left empty. Her name was Wu Zetian. And this is the story the blank stone refused to tell. She was born in the year 624, in the early years of the Tang Dynasty, one of the golden ages of Chinese civilization. Her father was a wealthy timber merchant who had helped the founding emperor rise to power. That made the family rich, but not noble. And in Tang China, birth was everything. What set her apart was her father. Unlike most men of his time, he had his daughter educated, teaching her to read, to write, and to argue politics and literature. It was almost unheard of for a girl. At 14, her beauty and wit reached the imperial court, and she was summoned to the palace of the Emperor Taizong as a low-ranking concubine. She was given a 5th-rank title and a name that would follow her, Wu Mei, the charming Wu. But among the emperor's many women, she was one face in a crowd of hundreds. For 12 years, she remained in the lowest ranks, never bearing a child, watching the machinery of power from the shadows. Most concubines in her position vanished from history. She was studying it. In 649, the Emperor Taizong died. By custom, the childless concubines of a dead emperor were sent away to Buddhist convents, their heads shaved, to live out their days in prayer. Wu, now 25, was condemned to disappear behind temple walls forever. It should have been the end of her story. But she had already caught the eye of someone else. During Taizong's final illness, she had grown close to his son and heir, the young prince, who now became the Emperor Gaozong. Whether it was love or calculation, Gaozong could not forget her. And there was someone at court who saw a use for her. The reigning Empress Wang was locked in a bitter rivalry with a favored concubine, and she believed that bringing Wu back could distract the emperor and weaken her rival. So the empress herself arranged for Wu to leave the convent and return to the palace. It was a catastrophic miscalculation. The woman Empress Wang invited back to court would destroy her. Wu returned and rose with terrifying speed. She bore Gaozong's sons, securing her place, and turned her charm on the emperor until the 2 women who had ruled his heart, Empress Wang and the rival concubine, were both cast aside. Then came the event that would haunt her name forever. In 654, Wu gave birth to a daughter. Days later, the infant was found dead. Wu accused Empress Wang, who had recently visited the child, of murder. Whether the baby died of natural causes, or whether Wu killed her own daughter to frame her rival, no one can prove. But the accusation shattered Wang. The next year, Gaozong deposed his empress and raised Wu in her place. In 655, at the age of 31, the merchant's daughter, who had once been a nameless nun, became Empress of China. Her fallen rivals were imprisoned and, on Wu's order, brutally executed. There would be no going back. Wu did not intend to be a decorative empress. She was sharp, tireless, and fascinated by government, and her husband was often ill. Gaozong suffered from crippling headaches and failing eyesight, likely a series of strokes, and that left him unable to read documents or focus on affairs of state. So Wu ruled in his place. She sat behind a screen at the back of the throne room, listening to ministers, issuing decisions, and running the empire in his name. Officials began to call them the Two Sages, the twin rulers of China. She purged the old aristocratic families who opposed her, and promoted talented men from humble backgrounds through the examination system, building a network loyal to her alone. When ministers protested that a woman should not hold such power, she had them exiled or killed. By the time Gaozong died in 683, Wu had been the true ruler of China for years, and she had no intention of stepping down. On Gaozong's death, the throne passed to Wu's sons, but she found them disappointing. When her eldest surviving son began to assert himself as emperor, she deposed him within weeks and sent him into exile. She placed another son on the throne as a puppet, then set him aside too. For a few years, she ruled openly as regent, crushing a rebellion raised against her. Then she took the final step no woman had ever dared. In 690, at the age of 66, Wu declared that the Tang dynasty was over and founded a new dynasty of her own, the Zhou. She did not call herself empress or regent. She took the title Huangdi, emperor, the same title held by every male sovereign before her. To justify it, she circulated a Buddhist scripture proclaiming that she was the Maitreya, a divine ruler destined to bring a golden age. For the first and only time in Chinese history, a woman sat on the throne as emperor in her own right. Wu ruled through a paradox. To hold a throne no woman was supposed to hold, she built a machine of fear. She recruited a network of secret police and informers, encouraged accusations, and unleashed cruel interrogators who tortured suspected enemies into confession. Officials went to work each morning not knowing if they would return home. And yet, under that same iron hand, China flourished. She lowered the burden on farmers, expanded the empire's borders, and opened the government to men of talent regardless of birth, strengthening the examination system that would shape China for 1,000 years. She was a devoted patron of Buddhism, funding temples and the great carved Buddhas of Longmen, one of which, legend says, bears her own face. The common people prospered. The harvests were good. For all the blood at the top, her decades of rule are remembered as an age of stability and growth between two of China's greatest reigns. But no ruler reigns forever. As Wu entered her 80s, she grew frail, and her court grew restless over the influence of two young favorites she had come to rely on. In 705, with the aging emperor sick in bed, her own ministers and generals launched a coup. They killed her favorites and forced her to hand power back to her son, restoring the Tang Dynasty. Wu Zetian abdicated at the age of 81, stripped of the title of emperor and given back the rank of Empress Dowager. She died months later, in the winter of that same year. In her final wishes, she asked to be buried not as an emperor, but beside her husband Gaozong as his wife. And on the great stone tablet raised at her tomb, she left instructions that would echo across the centuries. Not a single word was to be carved. She had spent her life being judged, praised as a wise ruler, damned as a murderous usurper. and she left the verdict to those who came after. The blank stele still stands today. Wu Zetian, the only woman to rule China.